Be Wealthy and Smart, episode 1116.
Step into a world of wealth and financial freedom without budgets, boredom, or bosses on Be Wealthy and Smart. And now, here's your host, Linda P. Jones.
Welcome to Be Wealthy and Smart. I'm Linda P. Jones, America's Wealth Mentor, empowering women and men worldwide to financial freedom. On today's show, we're going to talk about the wealth transfer and how almost half of the ultra-rich haven't figured out how to pass on their wealth. Now, this comes to us from CNBC, and it was written by Sophie Kitterlin, and I wanted to share it with you because we've heard a lot about the greatest wealth transfer in the history of the world coming up, not only because baby boomers are such a large generation and are leaving money to their kids, but I believe also because there's a lot of wealth that's going to be created during the quantum age. So I'm going to share this article with you, and then at the end, I'll tell you what I know about how to transfer assets on to the next generation. It says some $84 trillion is expected to be passed from one generation to the next within the next 20 years, and that's just in the United States. But 41% of those currently holding on to this cash do not have a plan for how they'll pass on their wealth to younger generations, according to a report from UBS. While the 4,500 investors from 14 regions, who each have over $1 million worth of assets, surveyed by the Swiss bank, might be thinking about how to divide their money and investments, in many cases, there isn't a concrete plan. Even after the harsh realities of the pandemic, many investors simply aren't taking the actions necessary to ensure successful wealth transfer, the research dated October 19, 2022, found. However, this doesn't mean investors aren't concerned about the process. 76% of them have thought about whether there will be issues when they transfer their assets. 71% are aiming to minimize taxes on the inheritance they will leave, and 70% have questioned if future generations will use the assets wisely. On top of the lack of plans around passing on wealth, half of the surveyed investors haven't had conversations about how wealthy they really are, how their assets are invested, or how they will be split up. The reasons for this vary. 66% of investors said they were concerned about fairness, for example. Not all of them are planning to split their wealth equally, the report found. So I want to pause there and say, there may be differences with financial needs that their kids have, or they may have one child who hasn't gone to college yet, or if they are a special needs child, like they have autism, they could have to have a guardian for their entire life, and they may need more assets because theoretically they may not be able to support themselves. The article goes on to say, benefactors who have resolved to favor some heirs over others are clear about why. 80% will give more to heirs with whom they have closer relationships. Others cite heirs' financial needs and their role in caregiving, it said. Family structures, for example, when stepchildren are involved, further complicate the situation. 87% of investors involved in such a scenario said fairness worried them. Over half of investors just don't see these conversations as urgent. 46% avoid the topic of money within the family, and 49% are worried about making their children or grandchildren feel entitled. Among those who are set to inherit wealth, skipping the conversation about money was the main reason for not knowing much about family wealth plans. It's touchy to ask, hey, what's going to happen with your money when you die? We shy away from having those conversations, one person cited in the report explained. Avoiding the topic could, however, cause longer-term problems, said Iqbal Khan, the president of UBS's Global Wealth Management Division and its Europe, Middle East, and Africa region. While investors overwhelmingly want the inheritance process to go smoothly, inadequate inheritance planning can be costly and could lead to unresolved family conflict, he commented. 40% of those who inherited assets regretted not having conversations about wealth with their family beforehand. The research found a third of them reported conflicts with siblings or other family members about how to split up the money, or about questions like who gets the house. There is a solution, though. The survey found that both those giving and those inheriting assets are keen to open conversations and create a more formal plan about investments moving from one generation to the next. End of article. So when you're doing estate planning, of course you want to have a will. That's number one. The will determines who's going to receive your assets. If you want to do some tax planning and save taxes because you have a large estate, then you may also consider setting up some trusts. The trusts can be a strategy to help you save some taxes, and you can buy life insurance as cheap dollars to pay those taxes. Now, there is no longer a federal inheritance tax, but there is a federal estate tax. The federal estate tax generally applies to assets over $12.06 million in 2022 and $12.92 million in 2023, and the estate tax rate ranges from 18% to 40%. In addition to that, you want to consider your state and if they have a tax. There's only 6 states actually that impose an inheritance tax: Iowa, Kentucky, Maryland, Nebraska, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. In 2021, Iowa passed a bill to begin phasing out its state inheritance tax, eliminating it completely for deaths occurring after January 1, 2025. Now, I will include an article about inheritance tax, and it looks at each state, so you can look up your state and see what your situation is in a particular state. There are 14 states that have estate taxes, inheritance taxes, or both. Now, having a conversation about money and how much you're going to leave your beneficiaries can be very awkward. But I would recommend, rather than you talking about how many assets you're going to leave, you actually question them about what they would do with the money. Also, if you want them to spend the money in a particular way, you can put stipulations in a trust for that. So, for example, if you are leaving some money and you want them to buy a house with it, then you can stipulate that in the trust. The main thing is you want to have your estate in good order. So if you haven't had your will updated for years, or you haven't really addressed the issue of where your money's going to go, this is probably a good time to do that. Call up an estate planning lawyer and meet with them and have a conversation about what your options are, what your taxes might be that could be due, and how you can legally avoid paying those taxes as much as possible. Planning ahead is really the key. Being proactive makes all the difference. If you haven't yet subscribed to Be Wealthy and Smart, hit the subscribe button and you'll be notified as soon as new podcasts are available. That's all for today. Until next time, live the good life and be wealthy and smart.
Thank you for listening to Be Wealthy and Smart with Linda P. Jones. Share the wealth and tell your family and friends about the show. Check out our website, blog, and social media for more riches at www.bewealthyandsmart.com.